Today's speaker is one of our own club members, Nancy Young, whose volunteer work in disaster mental health with the Red Cross began in 2002 when she went through the training to qualify for deployment for national disasters. For the past 15 years, Nancy has helped numerous families recover from national tragedies. She most recently volunteered in August for Hurricane Harvey and last month in Las Vegas. Nancy is going to share with us the courage and resilience of family members and friends of the victims that she's worked with during the past few months. We look forward to your presentation, Nancy, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking with us. Questions at the end? Please wait for a mic. No commentary. And welcome, Nancy.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. We always have a lot of fun here, a lot of good singing. I'm glad this is a time when my class of 1976, you all are? Yeah. Nice thought, huh? So I'm very happy to take this opportunity to share with you some deeply meaningful experiences. I feel honored and privileged to have these opportunities with the Red Cross. And before I actually begin, I would like to ask, I'd like to recognize by asking you in the audience to stand who have ever been deployed by the Red Cross and stay standing. Ever been deployed by the Red Cross? Come on, Ed, get up. And now I would like any of you in the room who have ever been a Red Cross volunteer to also stand. Remember when you might have done it as a child even. Any volunteer in the room? And Tom Mooney, you're not standing, but well, it's very nice to see who has had that experience. And I'm really glad to have you all here. Thank you. You see from the title of this talk that there will be some focus. I got to get it right here, Jane. Yeah, good. Some focus on resilience. While it will not be discussed in length, it will be mentioned frequently because I believe resilience to be one of the most important attributes toward recovery from minor to very serious and life-taking experiences. I became especially aware of the power of resilience when deployed to Sandy Hook 5 years ago. I watched what a huge difference in survival and recovery for the families who found small yet resilient ways to cope. Hurricane season hits with some vengeance, warning and warning to all the people and property it visits. Most of us are very thankful for the skilled scientists who accurately predict the nature, the strength, the speed, and changes of the hurricane coming our way. Red Cross volunteers who are seasoned and previously deployed begin to look at our calendars. We study the hurricane trajectory and receive advance notice from our families, friends, and clients. Scientists we are not, but we are alerted in multiple ways when that phone call comes. Disaster, mental health, requests that you deploy to Hurricane Harvey in Houston and leave within 24 hours for a 2-week minimum deployment. We know the drill and how to arrange for the one-way flight paid by the Red Cross. They pay for our way home, too. Pack everything stored in the Red Cross drawer at home, cancel commitments at work and home, give thanks to supporting family and friends who keep things on track at home, and arrive at the airport on time. Then take a really good nap on the airplane. With few exceptions, the photos that will be included throughout the presentation are all taken from the internet. The Red Cross policy is that volunteers take no photos of the clients or their homes. We came upon a monumental scene of destruction in Texas. You see the shaded area there where the destruction has been so critically bad. And that was in the area where I was working Houston, Beaumont, and Port Arthur. You've seen on television and newspapers the destruction, such as this kind of a picture that we had to work around and walk around and try to get to where we were going. My work was mostly focused in the smaller towns of Beaumont and Port Arthur, along with a partner nurse or chaplain. Given the extreme damage to most homes and businesses, we generally met folks in client shelters. This is not the shelter. This is the extreme damage. An exception was Robert, a determined, independent, longtime resident who had survived the worst of storms. He was very proud of surviving them, and that he was hoping that he would also survive this one, which he did. But after taking all the precautions, yet still in the path of Hurricane Harvey, a force which was greater than most destroyed his home. However, then help came from a Mexican Red Cross team to join our efforts with the overwhelming task of cleanup. They were a fine group of seasoned Red Cross workers and we welcomed them with smiles and sometimes with tears. Resilience is not a rare ability. In reality, it is found in the average individual, and it can be learned and developed by virtually anybody. Most often, we meet with clients in the client shelters. While they are clean, dry, warm, and safe, they are temporary and must prepare to close as soon as they open. On my very first deployment at a Tennessee tornado, I learned from the experienced shelter manager that we open a shelter even if only in anticipation of the need, and then we prepare to close it down. My confusion about that policy soon turned to understanding that this is temporary, not permanent assistance. Our job is to help the residents use all tools of resilience toward a positive, independent, self-sustaining future. On many deployments, the Red Cross houses volunteers in local motels where we must expect to have 1 to 3 roommates. I must say that sometimes we do not even know who's going to be there when we get back at night, who's going to be in our room. If you have a king bed, you might not know who your partner is either. And it seems very weird, but I want you to know that there's something that happens when you land at the disaster, and that is a level of trust that happens just immediately. You find somebody at the airport, you're going to share a car with them and drive it, and then you find a room and you get your room, and somebody else is going to be there too. It's a level of trust which really actually works out very well. All of the people that we get to know, oh, Jane. Oh, wow. You know, I must have been sitting here clicking it and not knowing it. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, gosh, I was really... Okay, I think I'm caught up here. At the tornadoes in Houston and Beaumont and Port Arthur, we were in a shelter. This is our shelter, where we had potentially all of our new best friends ever. The Harvey-caused conditions were so grave that we lived there with up to 200 men and women staff sleeping on cots. And this is my cot, using porta potties outside, taking showers in semi-trucks specifically built with clean shower stalls. They weren't too bad. And lights out at night at 10 p.m., then lights back on at 6 a.m. The worst part about all of it is going to the shower when it's still dark in the morning or at night, and any time of day, and not having everything you need to get clean and back to your cot, and putting dirty clothes back on because that's all you brought with you. So the Hurricane Harvey mental health team, was a wonderful group of folks from all over the country. And when, when Harvey chased everyone out of town, there were only a few places left for talking with residents. Most of us made our way to churches or shelters along with the belongings they could save. As long as their family members and pets survived, they felt grateful to be alive. Those who talked about their experience were on their way to recovery. I'm not showing pictures of us talking to people, you can see, but this is what we did and this is who we are. They told stories over and over, praised God over and over, and sang, "Jesus loves me," again and again. They praised God to be so fortunate and asked for guidance to help other people. There was a profound sense of gratitude expressed by most of the residents for being alive and safe and looking forward to the future. Whoops, just a minute here. So resilience is the ability to bounce back from a negative experience with competent functioning. Every now and then I'll have a little thing in there for you to know what I mean when I'm talking about resilience. The norm when we go to these tornadoes or any kind of a disaster is that people find their level of resilience pretty quickly. And they actively support each other day by day. And I watched them become advocates for others in the shelter, hoping that one day soon they too could feel the power and satisfaction of mobilizing and taking charge of their lives. Unlike the natural disasters, most of which give some warning to prepare the human-initiated disasters, present suddenly, prompting massive confusion, fear, and panic. The Las Vegas massacre resulted in the death of 56 adults, as you see on this photograph, adult concertgoers, leaving more than 100 children without one or both parents. Immediately after the tragic shooting on October 1st, Southern Nevada Red Cross volunteers and staff sprang into action, working alongside government partners at the Emergency Operations Center and quickly providing 450 blood products to 13 local hospitals to save lives. Active recruiting for Red Cross trained health and mental health and spiritual caregivers began immediately, successfully sending several hundred volunteers to Las Vegas for a 2-week deployment. Excuse me, there we go. These are memorial crosses for all of the victims, and we were part of the Integrated Care Condolence Team, which is made up of licensed mental health and spiritual care volunteers and the FBI. We served 2 major hospital facilities along with our partners. My first assignment in Las Vegas was to become the mental health person on the ICCT team to meet with families of concertgoers who were killed or hospitalized on life support or in critical condition. Each of the stories I will share come from the heart of the family or the person directly affected, and with their verbal permission, because the world needs to know that our liberal gun laws and lack of mental health treatment will only continue to support more tragedies of this magnitude, just like the Sandy Hook parents said, almost word for word. We generally were able to meet with 5 or 6 families each day and noticed a consistent pattern of wanting to tell their story and wanting to be heard. Each of the families described how difficult it was to know how to escape further gunshots as the bullets sprayed in all directions. Laura began sharing her experience, saying that when my husband was shot, we were standing near a fence, but there was no way out. We thought he would be safe if we stretched him against the bottom of the fence, then laid on top of him to shield him. The bullets were coming from all directions. They never stopped, even for a second, Laura says. She goes on that people were going under the stage to be safe. We thought that would be better. So we dragged him under the stage. But then we realized his injuries were too severe, and we had to get help to get help to him quickly. He was bleeding too much. We got to the fence and had to climb it. I'm pretty strong and began to climb it, she said. Then I saw his eyes were drooping. So I got down with my eyes and I said, Brian, look at me. Look at me in the eyes. You're strong. You have to climb this. You have to get over this fence. Use your legs and breathe hard. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. We have to make it. Then out of nowhere, 3 really strong guys came over and boosted him over the fence. And the other guys on the other side helped him down. Then they carried Brian toward the road and stopped the first car that came by. The car stopped, they put him in the car, and I jumped in, she said, and they drove to the hospital. Brian was admitted immediately with life-threatening injuries as the bullet had zigzagged back and forth inside his stomach and chest. Laura said, they examined me in the ER and told me I had been hit in the head, but it looked like the bullet did not enter. They said it looked like it skipped across my scalp and to the other side. I remember feeling something awful had hit me, but had forgotten about it. So they had to stitch up my part of the scalp. See this headband, she said, it's covering, it's not too bad. Then she said, I was really, really lucky. And Laura's tears began to flow. Her husband has been discharged from the hospital and is doing pretty well. Many families, not just this one, were truly amazing families who came from all over the United States and the world to support their loved ones. As part of the ICC team, I met with large and small families who consistently praised the efforts of the helpers and who were hiding, the memorials, the concert goers, not to run to safety, but first help others to safety. Somewhere in their history and experience, their upbringing and modeling resulted in immediate and unquestioned care and concern for others, as seen by their action, and putting others' safety first. I met several generations, including the father-in-law, who could only focus on the wonderful people at the concert, who tried to help, the Las Vegas people, who have reached out with such care, the many businesses who have provided food, homes, cars, and the FBI care and protection extended to them, including the Red Cross, who paid to fly 2 family members to Las Vegas of any of the injured persons. A quote, "There is hope for the world with so many good people," spoken by a father of a 23-year-old daughter recovering from intensive care. There were many, many examples of people helping others who they never had met before. I'm going on to a story about the burdened difficult decisions some people had to face. Paramedics sometimes took a moment to unload the difficulties with the responsibilities and decisions. He explained that they had to take red-tagged patients first, but it's not always that easy. People were begging to take them because they were in so much pain. One woman grabbed at my ankle, he told me, and we locked eyes. All she could say was, "Please." She had tears all over her face. But she was tagged in yellow, and there were people tagged in red. So I had to say, I'm sorry, someone will be back for you soon. The first patient they took was a woman with a gunshot wound to the chest. She wasn't able to breathe. She was in really bad condition. We took her to the hospital, and the dispatch said, go right back for more patients. There were many stories of people having difficulty finding safety. Some people dragged as many injured people into a bathroom as they could, quickly and quietly, not knowing where the shooter was located. They barricaded the door and tried to stop the bleeding to keep the injured alive until it was safe to leave. But that was not for another 30 minutes when a police officer broke through the door. At least that meant that help was coming. But the trauma of not being able to help the injured was overwhelming. My last story is about a young mother who saved a wandering child. Perhaps my most memorable and heartwarming experience was the 3.5 hours spent with Tanya at the Family Assistance Center. While Tanya is not her real name, she is a 24-year-old single mother of a 6-year-old daughter. Tanya's income is sporadic. She is an on-call parking lot attendant for the concerts and on duty when the shooting began. Her daughter was safely at home with her aunt. Tanya was knocked down several times and trampled by the crowds going in all directions. She explained this to a friend who told her to come to the Family Assistance Center for help. While her daughter played in the child care portion of the center, I explained the services of the agencies and how we would visit each of the agencies. She described her sleeplessness, her lack of appetite, her fear of nightmares about her experience, her headaches, and general discouragement about life. It was clear to me that she would qualify for the benefits at the center. With lots more listening about living in poverty, lacking a high school education, her daughter's father's location unknown, and her general hopelessness, Tanya became tearful about the night of the shooting. She went on to describe to me the crowds pushing and pulling in all directions. The bullets also went in all directions, so the crowds could not find their escape route. To avoid any more pushing or falls or bullets, Tanya decided to hide under a car in the parking lot because she was afraid to walk to her bus. Families had been split up in the horrendous confusion, and a young child was terrified and alone, crying in the parking lot. This young child survived because his cries jolted this young mother, Tanya, to action. She left her hiding place, retrieved the child, and took him under the car with her. For 45 minutes, they hid together under a parked car, crying and scared, until a police officer found them after the shooting was over. Tanya handed the child to the policeman, saying, "This is not my baby. I would have wanted someone to take care of my child too. Can you find his mother?" While Tanya is saddened by not knowing the outcome of that story, she perked up a bit as people gave her so much positive acknowledgement. She qualified for both health and mental health benefits, and as she was leaving, she went around and hugged all the volunteers she had gotten to know. Her last words to me were, "When I came in here, I had never heard of the Red Cross." Tanya, who protected a traumatized child, is what I consider to be Mr. Rogers' kind of hero. I will read this Mr. Rogers tribute. "When I was a boy, and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.' To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I am always comforted by realizing that there still are so many helpers, so many caring people in this world." and you are among all of them. And I thank you for listening. If you have questions, there are microphones that are going through the room, and just raise your hand. And if you have a question, a microphone will be brought to you. I know that at the end of these talks about the Red Cross, the feeling is sort of one of needing to just sort of take it all in, and questions don't come up too much until an hour from now or later. And that's perfectly fine, because I know it's a very difficult subject to take in.
And Nancy, Jeff Kunz from Monona. I actually have two questions. One is, what are the greatest needs of Red Cross now besides money?
Faith, hope, and love.
And not blood.
Well, Tom, you can stand up if you want. The money is really very important, because it buys the things that we need, rather than bringing lots of toys or lots of clothes. The money can go in exactly the direction it needs to go. Tom, do you want to add to that? Thanks for offering that.
Nancy, you've always put the needs of others ahead of yours. I remember 25 years ago when your husband and I were just beginning to launch the Monona Grove Educational Foundation, and you were well on your way to getting the Madison Educational Foundation started. How is it doing now? How is the one in Madison doing?
Oh, well, other people are working very, very hard. I have not been working so hard on the Madison Foundation, but it's fantastic. And there's people in this room who know a lot about that, too. So I'm glad you brought that up. And Monona's foundation is going great guns. And you have a question. John. Could you, use the mic, please. Thank you.
When you got to Houston, how much time was it after you got off the plane to actually when you were deployed and working, and who organized you once you got there?
Oh, that's such a good question, and it's such an amazing thing. When you arrive, I had to cut out so much stuff that I know is interesting because we have so little time. But when you arrive, you call a phone number, or you get an email. Life has changed. You get an email from the people at the where you're going, like in Houston. And if it's before 6 o'clock, you go to this hotel or shelter. If it's after 6 o'clock, you go someplace else. So if you get in after 6 o'clock, then you go to where you're going to stay for the night. And then the message says, report in the morning at such and such a address, which is the headquarters for Houston, for example. So you get there, and when you get there, the team is up and running. The team gets up and running so fast. Las Vegas was ready to go in less than 24 hours. And had everything in place, and brought people in from all over the country who were the ones who were going to be the directors, And so once you get into that first day, then you have your assignment in an area of mental health or an area that you're working in, and people are ready to have you begin your work day, and sometimes it's a 12-hour shift. Katrina was a 12-hour shift. But that's changed now, and these were only 8-hour. So that was good. Am I answering you? And what else did you want? Was that it? Okay. Good. There's so much about that. That's such an amazing thing to watch or to see how it gets put together. The computers are all over the place, running and operating and working in this. And there's it could be a room like this, for example, maybe in a smaller disaster where all the departments have their stations. and they're able to work with mental health, and then they send us out into different areas. So that's how it works. Any other curiosities here? Yeah. Oh, you.
The Grim Creeper.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And you're right, this is a very difficult subject. Hopefully, we can get through a week to celebrate with our families without any additional tragedies, although we experienced another yesterday. So please enjoy your holiday. We'll see you on November 29th, and we are adjourned.